overall, how is the project going? I don't think many people are close to being done, but it seems like we're making some really good progress overall. Anybody have anything in particular you want to share with how things are going for you and your team?
Yeah, the Michigan guys already have a front end built, graphics program, the whole nine. So you guys know, they're overachievers.
How's your group doing, Michael?
We're doing pretty good. We got our set points figured out. We've got our damper loop up and running. We were just fixing to get started on our staged heating.
Brad, how's your group looking?
I can unmute myself. We're looking pretty good. We've got our set points, our inputs and outputs. Tomorrow we need to actually start on our damper sequence and then our heating sequence.
Cool. Bob, how's your group actually doing? We know
everybody's failing at this point. I just want you to know that right now. As of right now, they're all failing, including me. We're putting it together. We got our inputs, outputs. We're figuring out occupied versus once we have occupied set, then we can add all the other trains of thought there, but occupied to a string of damper control and understanding the limitations of the emulator. So.
Mr. McNabb, how's your group going? I know you're struggling a little bit, but.
They started out kind of waiting on me to see what I had, and I really didn't have anything. Chris Miller was a little bit farther along, but ran into the issues that you helped him with. I tried to at least get to some kind of basic logic that I could help Don and his cohort with, and hadn't quite got there yet. So we're still in the beginning. And then after listening to Bob, I realized, oh yeah, there is a occupied, unoccupied type of schedule that we need to set, and I have no idea what function does that.
So you're making progress though, is what it
Yeah,
sounds.
making progress. I'm not sure what specific schedule function you use for occupied, unoccupied, or if you use it as a discrete input.
Discrete input is all we're looking for this project.
Okay. Well, then that solves that. So I should have, I'll throw something together this evening and share it with them, but I'd rather see where they're at, because I'm sure because of where we're at, especially Don's probably got a creative solution already worked out.
Yeah.
Just, we didn't have an opportunity to share it before I was called away. And then we know where Chris is, and Chris is pretty far along. And I'll have some kind of logic set for it, but I'm hoping to get some functionality out of my kit too. But I have to make some phone calls and have some discussions because they're not available. They're working.
Right.
And the workshop kind of interrupted our time frame for them to come in and help me learn to use the software, or give me training on software and help me get set up communicating with the controllers. So that kind of, it was not getting the stuff till Thursday that kind of made that issue.
Kind of put you in a pinch. I understand.
Yeah, but that's okay. Even though I don't have all the parameters loaded properly, I can work with each parameters because they give you a pretty good log of what line item commands to use. And some of that, all that line item command is packaged into certain things. Like you can get a whole block that's PID, and you just put the ins and outs. And also certain other functions like that where you don't have, where you can get in and do line item things if you really needed to, but you don't necessarily have to. It's more set up on a spreadsheet.
Perfect. Awesome.
But using contemporary, well, using Sedona will help me at least get the logic worked out.
There you go. Andy, how's your group looking? Saw a lot of work going on.
Five more laptops floating around here.
Trying to figure out which one to talk into. I understand.
Yeah, well, last spring I took a C programming class, and actually Connie was my instructor, and now I'm trying to teach her this, and it's just not working out. We've got a pretty good tackle on the first page. We're just wrapping up the cooling logic, get the dampers, and then we need an ASW to convert over to the minimum, to the min and the heating logic. So we got a pretty good run on it.
Fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
Robin, what are you guys doing?
Well, we are still struggling a little bit with hardware. We ended up with our differential pressure sensor wasn't such a hot deal. It was in the center of the VAV box, and we had the fan, the radial fan, right in front of it, and we couldn't figure out why we weren't getting any differential pressure until I realized there isn't any flow out of the middle of a radial fan. So we now have 6 feet of duct, and we're starting to get some movement in there, but it wasn't lining up terribly well with with what we would expect given using the function. So we did a calibration on it, and we calibrated it and did a regression. And one of the things I found out about EasyIO is their natural log function doesn't work. It doesn't work at those low values that we're getting in, and so that was a learning experience.
Might be why.
So we decided we're going back to the formula, the 4005 times the square root, but coming up with values that are significantly higher. So we may use, I'm trying to figure out what to do about that, because we can actually measure the flow rate. We got flow meters. So I may use some sort of a fudge factor or go to the polynomial regression fit much better. So, even though we know it's a natural log relationship. So other than that, we haven't gotten too far. I did figure out occupied versus inoccupied, but that's because I knew how to do right Boolean. That was pretty simple.
2 things. One, the reason you're running into issues with that log is because Sedona doesn't do really small decimals particularly well. It has some built-in rounding that really is almost problematic. So if you multiply your initial value by 100 or something like that to bring it up into a more readable, and then divide your resulting log appropriately, you might get a more accurate answer. If that works with the logarithmic function.
I don't think it works with log. That's why we use logs, because they're not linear. You can't use that linear transform. But yeah, but that's good to know.
Is there a significant value that this Sedona uses, like 3 sig figs or some value? Because obviously the decimals, they truncate after the 100th place.
Yeah, that's typically where it truncates after.
But as far as positive, big numbers.
Places, sometimes EasyIO seems to go to 3 most of the time. If you push it, contemporary controls always seems to want to come back to the 2. So
yeah. Okay.
I haven't gotten a consistent answer for that.
But that is a good workaround. I like that workaround for other things.
Yeah.
So.
The other suggestion I would offer is you've got some flow to work with, some numbers. So instead of fixating and trying to solve that issue, work forward with the logic. Because you know how to solve your flow issue, or you'll figure out how to solve your flow issue.
That's right.
But it shouldn't inhibit you from making the overall progress.
Right. So I can just tweak the parameters, and that's what I figured. But I will be starting tomorrow with a nearly blank slate and much more knowledge.
There we go. So the slate is never really blank. You're just building it more quickly. So, one thing that I wanted to point out that Robert McNabb said was he didn't want to show the students his solution because he wanted to see what they come up with. That is absolutely how I work, and I love that and that approach because it forces your students to think and troubleshoot instead of just copying what you have done. And copying is pretty easy. Sometimes it has its own challenges, but the troubleshooting and the thinking to actually get to the result really works amazingly well. There are some students that you will absolutely frustrate to no end with doing that, but I'm not sure that's not always a bad thing.
That's better than them finding out that you don't know what you're doing.
No, I love it when they find out I don't know what I'm doing. I love it when students prove me wrong because it gives me a chance to learn. Ask me questions I don't know the answer to. That's great. Means I've got to go find the answer. It's fantastic. And it helps prove to them that no matter how much you know, there is always more to learn. And I don't think there's any industry where that is more of a truism than ours. So.
What was it Mark Twain said? He says, it ain't what they don't know that hurts them. It's what they know that ain't so.
There you go. We are running right at the end of our scheduled time today. So does anybody have any final comments that they want to share?
Robert, do we have to do anything special to save this? Like just save and it should stay right in the controller, and when I show up tomorrow morning, it should still be there?
Absolutely. So that is one discussion point that did come up that I forgot about. Thank you for reminding me, Matt. As we are programming this, both on contemporary controls and EasyIO, as soon as you save it, hit the save, or in contemporary, I think it's send to controller. The work that you've been doing live, which is live in the controller, it's in volatile memory at that point. When you hit that save, it shoves it down into the permanent memory in the controller. So as long as you hit the save button, you can turn off power. As long as your controller doesn't jump off the wall on you and die, you'll be good to go tomorrow morning.
Is there any way to work on this program offline and come back tomorrow and dump it back into the controller?
Yes, there is. You can.
Is it really difficult?
It's not difficult. The challenge is if you don't get exactly the right firmware on your emulated controller and you work on it tonight and go to dump that
Or kits.
controller tomorrow morning, it will crash that controller and you will have effectively lost all the work you did today and yesterday. So while it is possible, yes, I do not recommend trying to do it.
Is it possible to save offline? Frank had to leave and he asked me to send the stuff over when we're done. So I'm working with the EasyIO controller and I'm wondering if there's a way to save it on the computer and then send it to him.
Yes, there is. So I think I'm connected to something. Yes. Let me do a quick screen share. And in the EasyIO controls, it's all based out of that kit management section. So I'm going to run to kit management. And down here at the bottom, there's a button that says back up. Just hit that. It's going to save it into your file, files recent, and then whatever you're calling your controller in CPT. And just select your folder and away you go.
Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Where was that backup button? I'm sorry.
It's under kit management. I need to share the screen, not just change over to my programming tool. So if you're in your regular programming, come up to your toolbar and hit the button with the 2 gears, Billy. And then it's down here at the bottom. And then when it comes time to load that into another controller, a virtual controller, a real controller, you'll just hit the restore button, navigate to where you saved that file, and away you go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Ted, Peter, Larry?
It's just going to be interesting. I feel like we didn't get anywhere, but we covered a lot of ground.
Even if you're walking in circles, you're still walking, right?
Well, one of the things that, we had, I don't think one of the parts that is connected in the minds is the design side of it. How would you design this, and what do we have to think about, and what are the blocks? That's a lesson all in itself, just to go through what are the blocks that are going to apply to this situation and why. Even though you went through blocks to give an overview, it's why would I use this block and this reason, and then carving out all the sections of what you want to show people how to minimize it and compartmentalize it and start to develop it into something. That's the toughest part right there.
It really is. And
Without giving them the answers, without giving all the answers. And that's why I'm not trying to figure the answer out before. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely a huge challenge. And I'll be honest, the way yesterday went, I know we got a lot of information across, but I personally actually didn't like the way yesterday went, because I gave you a huge amount of information all in one big lump sum, and it's really hard to digest when you do that.
Yeah, we were going over the same concepts. Yep.
Yeah. What would be a lot better in the way, if we had more time, I would have preferred to do it, would be to get some basics done in the programming, come up to a question, and then, okay, let's look at a couple of blocks that might be able to answer that question for you.
Exactly.
Step through it that way. I think that would have been a better way for us to have approached this. But with our time constraints and everything, I don't know if it would have been practical for us. So, but yeah, you're right. The design side of programming is there are classes upon classes in IT and computer science talking about exactly that topic. So it's challenging, inarguably.